Okay, while people are still coming in, I'd like to welcome everyone to the 158th annual meeting of the Winchester Unitarian Society. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Martin Newhouse, and I'm the moderator of the Society, which means that I have the honor of facilitating the Society's meetings, including today's annual meeting. And I note that though this meeting is being live streamed, and I hope people are watching us on live stream, only those in the sanctuary are able to vote on the matters that will come before us. Right now, we have to attend to our first order of business, which is to establish that we have a quorum. Under our bylaws, we need 20 members of the Society in attendance for there to be a quorum. With those in attendance and who are also members of the Society, please raise your hands. Okay, we definitely have a quorum. And now, before we get to the business of the meeting, I call upon our interim minister, Reverend Seth Carrier-Ladd, to say a few words blessing our meeting, and then he's graciously agreed to say a few words for the lighting of the chalice. Do you want to stand here? Or?
Should we do the chalice lighting first?
Sure.
Okay. All right, our chalice lighting words this afternoon are by Eric Walker Wickstrom. As we approach our agenda, let us remember that we are doing the work of the congregation. When we do this work, we touch lives. When we touch lives, we change the world. May this chalice flame we now kindle remind us throughout our meeting of our ministry and our mission. And in terms of our blessing, may the work that we do here today be sacred and holy work. And may we remember it and think of it as such, even as we are engaged in it. The business of the church is often thought of as business, but it is the business, the infrastructure, the administration that allows us to do all of the ministry of the church. And so this is truly ministry, being here today and showing up and participating in the leadership of our congregation. May we remember, if and when we disagree, that we are part of one community with shared values, shared beliefs, and shared goals. May we also remember and know our belief in diversity and inclusion, honoring all of those who love 3 and 4 hour meetings, as well as those who like 1 hour meetings. And so, while we are, of course, encouraged to share fully on our hearts and freely, let us also remember that brevity and conciseness are also virtues. And so may the work that we do today, of the work of our congregation, of setting the budget and doing all of these vitally important things in the life of the church, may it be blessed, and may you be blessed as we do this work together. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Seth. So as I've mentioned before, we're gathered here today for the 158th annual meeting of the Winchester Unitarian Society. And the purpose of today's meeting is to act on those matters set forth in the warrant, which was issued by our standing committee and distributed, mailed out to all members of the society. Does everybody have the warrant? Okay. I believe the warrant is in the annual report, so if you don't have a copy with you, but I will be specifying what the warrant articles say as we go through the meeting. I don't want to repeat what Reverend Seth said because he probably said more concisely what I was about to say. But I want to just say a few words, as I usually do in the introductory to the meeting, a few opening comments, and some of you may be here for the first time, so that is important. I want to talk, first of all, about the spirit that we will follow this afternoon and also the procedures we will follow. First, to the spirit. To the extent there are matters on our agenda, that means which are contained in the warrant. The warrant is essentially the agenda of the meeting. To the extent there are such articles about which people here may disagree, or about which there may even be controversy and debate, we should all remember that the hallmark of this congregation and of this process is that our debate should all be conducted with civility and fairness, which I will strive to encourage, and which I should say I know to be one of the chief characteristics of this congregation. Most importantly, to the extent that there are debates on questions, we should strive to concentrate always on the merits of the question before us and never on anyone's motives. We are all people of good faith and seriousness of purpose, and all with the best interests of the society at heart. Second, a word about the procedure. So I know I've done this before, but it's always good to be reminded. Under our bylaws, church meetings like this one are run according to the parliamentary procedures set forth in Robert's Rules of Order. We are bound by those rules under the bylaws, and we cannot depart from them. Robert's Rules have been around a long time. They've been tested, and certainly my experience here that they do work, and they allow us to maintain a civil and reasonable discussions. To the extent there are any questions under Robert's Rules, I have them here. Everybody's free to consult them if you wish. I always tell this anecdote, so please forgive me, but I love it. There's a historical reason why Robert's Rules of Order are used in churches. They were first published in 1876 by U.S. Army officer Henry Martin Roberts. He was a soldier, and he wrote the manual because he had been asked to lead a church meeting on abolition at the First Baptist Church in New Bedford. And the meeting developed into chaos, and after that experience, he said, I better write down some rules. So that's where these come from. So the most important rule that I want to remind everybody about is that under Robert's Rules of Order, and I must say under Massachusetts statutes too, believe it or not, except where our agenda, in this case again, the warrant, calls for us to hear a report and to accept and receive the report, where it asks us to take action, there can be no discussion of the question before there is a motion. So that's an important point of procedure, and when we deal with every warrant article, except those, again, that just ask us to hear a report and receive it, I will call for a motion and a second, and then we can discuss. So I've given certain people motions. When you hear a motion, it doesn't mean we're going to vote on that matter right then. You have to have the motion and the second, and then we can discuss it, and then people can make motions to amend and all that kind of stuff, but we can't do anything without the motion first. So just keep that in mind. And another important rule is that the only stuff we can deal with in this meeting are those matters in the warrant, okay? Now, the importance of that, in my view, is that it protects the rights of those who are not here. Everybody got the warrant, everybody was told to be here, but there may be people who couldn't be here for reasons they cannot control. And the idea is we will only talk about and vote on those matters that they know we're taking up in this meeting. So if I rule that a motion or a comment is out of order, just remember, that's not a comment on the merits of what anybody said. If I say, you're out of order, Nancy, you're out of order, right? It doesn't mean, now this, I'm talking about here, not at home. It doesn't mean that what Nancy just said is invalid or has no meaning or isn't important. It just means it's not on the warrant. That's all it means. So it's not a comment on what you're saying. Certain items in the warrant sometimes require a 2/3 majority. Right now, today, everything we have on our warrant only requires a majority vote. So I don't think I have to go into all the mechanics of a 2/3 majority except for this, okay? Every now and then, if a debate gets protracted, and with Reverend Seth, I hope it won't get protracted, but every now and then somebody wants to call the question, which means let's end the debate and vote. That requires a 2/3 majority vote. And the reason is that the right of people to speak their minds at a meeting is not to be lightly terminated, okay? But right now, that's the only thing I can think of that would require a 2/3 vote. And if we need a 2/3 vote, I will explain how we count that. Yes, Gordy?
You can't speak your piece and then call a question. You have to call a question without saying.
Right. The call, by the way, yeah, thank you very much. A motion to call the question needs to be seconded, and there's no discussion. All right? It is not even discussed. It's just voted on right then. So every now and then I'm up here, and the debate's been going on, and I can see it's just petering out, and somebody wants to call the question, and I've been known to say, don't do that right now. Let's just end the debate, because I don't want to go through the rigmarole of a 2/3 vote, because so many people call the question and then lose a 2/3 vote. Okay. Seth has expressed it, and I know everybody here would like the meeting to be pleasant and even joyful, and I'm with the sentiment expressed that two things that make a meeting joyful and pleasant is to make it short. So as Seth said, I will just emphasize again that full debate on a question is encouraged, and I will not do anything to stop it, but let's try to be to the point, okay? And let's try to conduct our business with reasonable diligence, all right? But again, I certainly don't have a role of stopping debate. Okay, any other questions about procedure? All right, so let's proceed to Article 1 of the warrant, which is to hear and act on the minutes of last year's annual meeting, which took place on May 19th, 2024, and last year's special meeting, which took place on October 6th, 2024. Do I have a motion with respect to that first article? I think Chris Wygand. Yes, please, Chris.
Article 1, I move that the reading of the minutes of the May 19, 2024 annual meeting and the October 6, 2024 special meeting be waived and that they be approved as written.
Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, so the minutes have been approved. Now we have Articles 2 through 7 of the warrant, and these are the articles in which we're going to hear reports by members of the church, staff members, leaders of the church, our Reverend Seth, and rather than go through each article separately and have a motion and a second and then a discussion, etc., my practice has been to make a motion for all of them, okay? And then we'll hear the reports, and then and I'll ask for a second, we'll hear the reports, and then we'll go from there. So I have asked, I believe, Marilyn Wilson to read the motion covering Articles 2 through 7 of our warrant.
I move that the reports of the Standing Committee, Interim Parish Minister Reverend Seth Ladd, the Director of Youth and Children's Ministry, Sam Wilson, the Church Administrator and Outreach Manager, Richard Durbin, the Music Director, John Kramer, and the trustees of permanent funds be received with thanks as submitted.
Second? Second. Okay, so now we're going to start, and I think the first one to give a report will be Gordy, Gordy McIntosh, the chair of our standing committee. Yeah, I'll do it there.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator and congregation, for giving me this time. It has been the chair's preference to ask the staff to do these brief oral reports in addition to their written reports. It's been done in the past. I had it done last year and for this year. So we'll see how it moves forward. But I think it's always good to see our staff and people get up here and say a few words in addition to their written reports. I'm not asking them to read their written reports or anything like that, but I think it's great to see them get up here and do that. Anyway, this time last year, we were preparing to say goodbye to Reverend Heather. In her 9 years with us, Heather led us through some difficult times and brought us together in ways we never thought possible. She gave us a foundation for growth. And yes, we are growing and thriving as a congregation and a community. We approach the close of our first year of interim ministry. The Standing Committee of the Church is humbled to present this brief report on the highlights, achievements, and collective spirit that has carried us forward. This year, our church has held over 50 worship services that engaged our congregation in meaningful reflection and fellowship with record participation both in person and online. We had what I believe to be a record, at least in recent years, 16 individuals signed the book on Membership Sunday. The church has extended its mission beyond our walls, organizing multiple community service initiatives. These include weekly food collections that provide meals for over 300 families in need, providing meals twice a month for the Dwelling Place in Woburn, and partnerships with local organizations to support social justice and environmental programs. I'd like to thank the generosity of our members who successfully completed key renovations to our building, including installing a new boiler. I hope everybody appreciated the heat this winter. Upgrading the solar array, which is still happening and ongoing, and basically the general maintenance and upkeep of the building and grounds. And I appreciate all the work of the building committee and James Piddox as chair and all that work. The church's finances remain stable this year. We continue to reduce our deficits year over year with inflation and even with inflation and increased costs. Thank you for all your generous pledges and for volunteering to work on fundraisers, in particular the rummage sale that's coming up soon. Looking ahead, as we step into the new year, our focus remains steadfast on deepening our spiritual connection, expanding our outreach efforts, and fostering a welcoming environment to all. Upcoming goals include preparing for a new settled minister, increasing engagement in youth and family ministries, exploring opportunities for community partnerships to address local challenges, and seeking new ways to grow our membership and our financial sustainability. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to each member of our congregation for their unwavering faith, time, and talents. Your commitment has been the cornerstone of our collective success. Let us move forward together, guided by faith and love, into a blessed new year. I'd like to recognize that this year's current standing committee, Martin Newhouse, Vice Chair, Claire McNeil, Fritzie Nace, Sheila Puffer, Ryan Levering, Chuck Kuhn, John escapes me, John, sorry. Marcy Thompson, our treasurer Brad Steele, and our clerk Ginger Hansen. Appreciate all that you've done and all the support I've had over the last couple of years on the standing committee. So with blessings, thank you very much.
Next, we'll hear from Reverend Seth.
Hey, everybody. I haven't talked to you about this, but I don't know if everybody knows, but Gordy is stepping down as standing committee chair at the end of this cycle, and it's a really, really big job. It's a lot of work, and Gordy has given a lot in this role. So if we could just have a round of applause for Gordy. Thank you for your service. Man, it's hard to believe it's been almost a year that I've been with you all. And it's just been, I have to say, really wonderful. It has been, you never know quite exactly what you're going to get. You read all this stuff and you just talk to the search committee. But it really has been a joy working with you all this year. So I want to thank you for all of your kind words to me and your support and your participation and just all of it. It's been a blessing to be with you all this year. So thank you. I'll just remind you, just a reminder of what interim ministry is. Some of you have heard this analogy before, but it's worth sharing again, right? That the interim ministry period is really a time of change and transition. There's lots to try and accomplish in these 2 years. One big part of that is moving on from your prior minister, right, Reverend Heather. With the transition team, we did some work on that this year together. We did a ritual of release earlier in the year, which provided an opportunity both to grieve, to share some of the good things that Heather brought to the congregation and grieve her loss, and also to share some of the harder things that some of you experienced with Heather, and to hopefully find some forgiveness and letting go, with the ultimate goal of moving forward and making space for your next settled minister. So hopefully we have started that process with the work that we did. Maybe for some of you it's finished, maybe for some of you it's ongoing, but that is the continued goal, is to be making space and getting ready for your next settled minister, which you all will address later in this meeting as you hopefully elect the slate of nominees for the search committee. So we are halfway through already this work of interim ministry together, and working towards getting the search committee going and being ready to have that person come and join you all. So the metaphor I said I was going to share, which I've shared before, I think it's a lovely one because it's based on science, and many of us who use like science, right, is that thinking of the congregation as a supersaturated solution. And so what happens was when a settled minister comes in, because a seed gets dropped in, the supersaturated solution forms a structure based on the structure of the seed, right, of your settled minister. So Heather came in, was dropped into the congregation. You all sort of formed in some ways around her and became, rigid is a strong word, but it's a structure, right? And so part of the job of interim ministry is to drop me in as the interim minister and hopefully help stir things up and get you back to being a super-saturated solution so that you're ready to then reform around your next settled minister when that person gets dropped in and reform in a different way. There's lots of reasons to like that metaphor. It includes the fact that the super-saturated solution, you all, doesn't change per se. I mean, you change a little bit, right? But it's still you, right? You all are you. We're not actually asking you to change who you are, but it's sort of loosening things up and getting ready to embrace the next person. So hopefully we've done some of that work, and we'll continue to do more of that work next year. And the big thing that I want to lift up for next year to really ask you all to participate in is that the Standing Committee has asked the transition to team to lead the congregation in a process of creating a congregational covenant. And so hopefully you all know what a covenant is. If you don't, the staff creates a covenant every year, and that's up on the church website. You can take a peek. But it's basically an agreement about how we want to be in relationship with one another. And so we're going to do that process next year, starting in the fall. And I really hope that you all will show up and participate, because there's actually two goals in creating the covenant. One of them is sort of what I would guess is be the expected goal of coming up with a final product, right? Here's the words, here's how we say we want to be together. That is one of the goals of the process. But the other goal is the process itself. Right? The words only mean so much. If only 20 people show up to create the congregational covenant, it's not going to have a lot of weight or meaning, because the conversation about who we want to be together actually really helps inform us about what that final, not only what the final document is, but it shifts and changes how we interact as we talk about it together. So there's two goals, please remember, next year with the covenanting process. It's not just creating the final document. If you only look at the final draft and say, yep, that works for me, you've missed half of it. So please show up next year when we're doing a bunch of events for the congregational covenanting process and participate, because your voice and your presence really matters. And with that, I think I'm good. It's been a really lovely year. I'm excited to do a second year with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Seth. And now we're going to hear from Sam Wilson.
Hello, everyone. So at the beginning of the program year, I gave a little half sermon where I shared some words about the Maasai people, who, as many of us know, are often considered to be some of the most fearsome warriors throughout the African continent. I talked about how then we may be surprised to know that the traditional Maasai greeting, Kasirian Ingera, means, "and how are the children?" Traditional response, in turn, is, "the children are well." So overall, I would say that the children and youth at Winchester Unitarian Society are well. We had a pretty solid year with the continued relatively new RE staffing and children's program structure, and without it being either Brenna's first year or me leaving for 5 months for sabbatical. So we continued offering 2 spirit play classes in the morning, plus neighboring faiths, OWL, our Whole Lives Sexuality Education class in the afternoon, JCG, the junior youth group, and WCG. Our number of registered children is slightly down this year, but I would also say that our families are more and more actively engaged, joining various groups and committees, being present right now. We have a playground out there full of kids that can attest to that. Speaking of which, one of the other highlights of this year is that we began offering childcare for everything that needed it, including choir rehearsal each Sunday and any other events where parents might need some childcare. So, which is a really wonderful step toward inclusion for the parents of our youngest. So next year, we are going to continue to bolster our programming for children and families. We will actually, after a lot of discernment and speaking with Rec and Diak and various parents, we decided to sunset JCG, at least for next year, but instead we are going to focus on Coming of Age, a new program for 7th and 8th graders in the morning. So we'll be having Coming of Age, which is kind of a traditional UU, lots of UU congregations do Coming of Age. You have mentors meet with these youth, and there's monthly meetings for coming of age parents, and then it kind of culminates in a credo service at the end of the year. So we're pretty excited to be offering program for children in grades 7 and 8 in the mornings, and specifically using this coming of age curriculum to do so. So look forward to that. And we are also going to be offering a new parents book group as well to support parents. Otherwise, we're going to be focusing on regrowing WCG and publicizing our programs more. After 10 graduated last year, the group has been in a bit of a regrowing year this year, but we are looking forward to continued growth there. Plus the haunted house in October. It's going to be pretty awesome. And that should be a natural publicity and also a big fundraiser for all of us. So that's kind of the overview of what's going on next year and this year. But mostly, I just want to share my gratitude to all of you, the members of this congregation. Thank you. Thank you for continuing to choose our children and youth, or as Allison would say, giving me and our youngest an enthusiastic yes. So thank you. And thanks to everyone who picked a fruit and helped us to do all the things. I leave you now with just 2 words in hopes that it may resonate with all of you as much as it has with me throughout the course of this year. Sapate Ingera. In Maasai, that means the children are well. I believe that we can all say that confidently today as we look around and ask each other how we're doing as a community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. And now we'll hear from our church administrator and outreach manager, Richard Dorbin.
My wife will tell you, be careful putting me in front of the microphone. My Vic Damone impersonation's a killer, so. But many of you may already know, most of you know that I am leaving. This is my last annual meeting. In the middle of July, I'm headed on to other adventures in the Midwest. So my wife and I, she retires and I look towards retirement. To that end, I'm committed beyond my time here to do anything I can to help in the transition for another administrator to come in and take the reins and serve you all. But most importantly, in this role, it's all these things have to get done, but the most important part of it is relationships. And maybe that's the most easy part of this job is I have relationships with all these fabulous people and committed committees, and that alone is what does it for me. And I've likened the job to playing whack-a-mole, because you come in and there's a clogged toilet, and you grab a mallet and you hit that. And that mallet is a different mallet than taking care of something that's happened in the building or something with a renter, but each of those mallets are individuals that step up. I want to recognize Jenny Go and the three sextons who are directly beneath me or work with me. But and I can get very emotional about this, but when something comes along and I need help, folks step up and get things done, and I've watched an incredible amounts of things happening here. And I was in tears when I see the culmination with the ceremony that happened today and thinking what kind of seeds are planted in this community, and especially at this time. So as far as things go in my report, there's an awful lot of things that are happening, and I think some of the best, more important things, I think, looking forward is expanding how we can utilize the building more and have relationships with renters so we can basically create a way that it's used positively in the community, as well as providing some additional income. And I think there's a room for expansion there. So we'll be moving to that. I also wanted to specifically point out to all the members of the Building and Grounds Committee that have driven what I see as making this place tick and making it thrive and being ready for the next generation. And the individuals that have done that, it's just an inspiring thing, and I've been very privileged to work with them and all the other members here. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And now we will hear from our music director, John Kramer.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you, and it's good to see all your faces from this vantage point. You can read my report for a lot of the information of things that we do. Of course, if you're here regularly, you see the kind of tip of the iceberg of everything that goes on in the music program and the number of anthems we sing, the number of hymns we all sing together. What I'd like to lift up just a little bit right now is all the work that we don't always see. And that's work that I do, maybe the 5 anthems that I look at and don't program. But I also want to thank all the choir members who take their choir folder home and look at that anthem one more time. And the kids in the chorale who ask for the words for the song we're singing so they can practice it at home. And of course, the parents who bring our children to rehearsals week after week after week. Faithfully, so we can have the children's chorale and the youth choir happen, the people who tune the piano, the people who do all that work. There's so much that goes on in a community like this, in any community, to do the work that we do, and especially in music, that's very, very true. The countless hours that our guest musicians practice to make a Music Sunday viable, for example. So I just want to lift up all those hidden invisible hours that we can only imagine and don't really see that make what happens on Sunday such a special, special time. Thank you for all your support, and it's just a pleasure to be your music director.
Thank you, John. Now, we also have, as Article 7, the report of the trustees of permanent funds. I'm not aware that anyone, Rebecca, would you like to make a few comments? That'd be great.
So this report is in your packet, and if you look, you can see that the funds increased just a little bit this year from just under 3.5 million. That's a total of restricted and non-restricted to just over 3.5 million, and that's after withdrawals for church operations. So that was an increase of about 5%. Which was pretty good. It allowed us to increase the amount given in this upcoming year by a little bit. It's a little exciting because around March 31, if you guys were paying attention, the markets were very volatile. So it was sort of like a spinning, what do you call them? Those things that depending on where it stops, that's what you get, and we lucked out. And we continue with the ESG mandate to invest in those stocks, in those funds which are environmental, social, and governance oriented. And the last thing I thought I'd mention is that this year we're doing something a little bit different. Building committee and then standing committee decided that it would be good to replace the solar panels. And so they went to get a loan for that and needed some collateral. So the endowment funds are serving to provide collateral, just a small amount, but it's useful. It's there, and that's it.
Rebecca. And I just want to we should all thank Rebecca and our other trustees for watching over the funds of this society. Okay, so on the floor is a motion in favor of receiving the reports we've just heard and their written forms as submitted. Are there any discussion? All in favor of receiving the reports as submitted, raise your hands. Any opposed? Okay, that's a unanimous reception of the reports. Great. Okay, now we move on to maybe a less exciting part of the agenda. Do I have a motion with regard to Article 7, which is to hear and act on the treasurer's report for the fiscal year ending August 31st, 2024, and the treasurer's estimated report for the year ending August 31st, 2025. And I believe that is Chuck Kuhn.
I move that the treasurer's report for the fiscal year ending August 31st, 2024, and the treasurer's estimated report for the fiscal year ending August 31st, 2025 be approved.
Do I have a second? Okay. In order for there to be discussion, I've asked Brad, our treasurer, to make himself available. Brad, would you mind coming up to the, and then you'll have to stay here for the next motion, the next article warrant too. To, if anybody has any questions, or maybe explain what these reports are.
Well, thank you, Martin, for setting the bar threshold so low by saying we're coming to the least exciting part of the meeting. So I will obviously keep things brief. I take it we're talking about the recently completed year 2024 and this current fiscal year. We finished our most recent complete year, which ended last August 31st, with a deficit of about $19,000, which was $12,000 less than the budget forecasted. So that was a good result. Income came in virtually to the dollar as forecasted. We had slightly less expenses in the end than we anticipated. This year, to give you a sense of where we were, at the end of April, that's 8 months into the 12-month year. So for those not comfortable with percentages, it's 2/3 or 67% of the year. Income that we had realized through that period was 69% of our budget, and our expenses were at 66% of the budget. So we were slightly favorable on an income basis and very slightly favorable on an expense basis. We don't necessarily realize income and incur expenses on a linear basis throughout the year, but it's not, widely variant to that. We do, however, have a couple of variables that are rather important that are coming up in these last several months. One is the rummage sale. That's a huge variable. We have $20,000 in the budget for fundraisers. We had a small fundraiser this fall that raised $1,000. The last rummage sale we did raised over $30,000. So on the upside, if this one can do even anything comparable to that, it'll be a real bonus. And Fritzy and Donna Reed and others have really been doing a fantastic job sort of organizing this event, and I hope everyone shows up for it. Sort of excited about, seeing it transpire. The other fortunate thing, we can thank our outgoing administrator, Richard, who's certainly one of the great strengths of his tenure here has been, as he says, the relationships that he's fostered. Most importantly, I think, with our tenants. One of those tenants, I think, is looking at perhaps doing a summer program with us that would add another $8,000 of revenue in the summer beyond, sort of anything that we've had in recent past years. So that's a good opportunity. On the other side, we have him leaving, and this is kind of the good news, bad news. The good news is we hope we're successful in replacing him and replacing him at a point that would allow him to train his replacement. That does mean we would have sort of two administrators overlapping, but I think that would be a good investment for the church if we can pull that off. But that said, it may be difficult to find somebody to put in his place, before he needs to leave to Nebraska. So we'll see how that evolves. But there are a few things to be determined. As I always say, a budget is a plan. Many of us know the famous Mike Tyson comment on plans. They're all very well, but when the bell rings and the first punch hits your mouth, plans go out the window. So, you sort of have to adjust on the fly, which I think this church has done a good job of doing over the last several years.
So any questions for Brad on this report on the fiscal year that ended August 31st and the one that we're in now and the estimate for the end of the fiscal year 2025. Any questions? Yes, Phil?
Is it true that our treasurer, who volunteered for 1 year of service, after a mere 4 years is retiring?
Well, that's not really a relevant question, but
Treasurer, as my predecessor, who's becoming my successor, can attest, is something you ever really can retire from around here. Short of dying, you know. And I will point out, as Judy Murray is you know, succeeding me, that I have offered to, you know, continue to, you know, work with her as she has worked with me over the last, you know, 4 years. So it's kind of a covenant, I guess you would say, you know, that is shared among, you know, those people with an interest in church finances. And you're fortunate to have Judy and Kathy Richardson in particular have been great resources for me, and I'm sure we'll continue to work together in the future.
any other questions or discussion? Then I'll call for a vote, and I'll remind you what the vote is about. It's to approve the treasurer's report as just discussed for the fiscal year ending August 31st, 2024, and the treasurer's estimated report for the fiscal year ending August 31st, 2025. All in favor of approving? Thank you. Any opposed? The motion passes. And now I'm asking Brad to stay here for the next completely unexciting motion article, which is Article 9 of our warrant, where we now come to the issue of approving the budget that the Standing Committee has recommended for the coming fiscal year, the church's fiscal year ending August 31st, 2026. And I think I asked Betsy Bowles to make that motion.
I move that the budget recommendation by the Standing Committee, for the fiscal year ending August 31, 2026 be approved.
Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion or any questions for the treasurer? Or Brad, do you want to make any statements about it?
The budget, no.
Yeah, no, okay.
I was just thinking, you know, Gordy, I mean, Martin, again, giving me sort of a rousing introduction to this segment of the agenda. You know, and Gordy had come up to me prior to this and sort of said, you know, it's great having you always give such clear discussions. You're not nearly as funny as Judy Murray, but, you know. So I'm sort of sitting here, you know, like, okay.
Okay, well, I think Sue Brokaw seemed to have a question.
Yeah, Sue.
I was going to ask you earlier, but anyway, other contributions, can we have a little description of what that is? It's like an angel drops down a bucket.
Exactly. No, you know, sometimes people make, you know, a memorial service where people that aren't associated with the church, but maybe with a family, make a donation of, you know, $50, $100, few $100s. It's not earmarked for anything in particular, but in memory of. Yeah.
Could you tell us what line that is of
Yeah.
the budget?
Other contributions, right under pledge, there's line 4100, individuals' income from the church. It's on page 36.
Oh, yeah, there are a couple of accounts that are, you know, aggregated there, and among others are like there might be late payments for pledges, other contributions. I'll have to, yeah. Any other questions?
Peter McEntee?
This is not pertinent to the current article, but in past meetings, we've passed around a microphone when people have questions. And can we do that again, because I'm not here?
That's good, yes. Sorry. Any other questions on the budget? Okay, then the motion is to approve the budget recommended by the Standing Committee for the coming fiscal year ending August 31st, 2026. All in favor, raise your hands. Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Forgot to ask about abstentions. Okay, so that is passed unanimously. That is approved.
Just, I did remember, Sue, what it is, so I do want to answer your question. This number has come up, this is actually a result of the extremely successful pledge campaigns we've had, and I want to echo that, because last year, we never had pledges exceeding $400,000 before. Last year, we had the matching pledge, and we got up to $436,000. This year, we're so far at $437,000 and counting. And thanks to Liz Lentz and John Healy for the remarkable work, and Liz Scott's here as well, that they've done on those pledge campaigns. And one of the interesting results of that is the more money you raise or get people to commit to, the more money you have to chase. And we get in late commitments to some of that stuff, which shows up in income in the succeeding year. So that number's gone up just the way that we categorize it in our income statements.
Thank you, Brad. Now back to the exciting part of the agenda. I'm just joking. Okay. We come to our famous article, which authorizes the congregation to raise and appropriate funds from income and receipts to operate the church, support our operations. Also has in it that article that the church can borrow, but for no longer than a year. And you remember our special meeting in October was to extend that for the purpose of the loan for the solar panels. But right now, in general, we have this article limiting our lending to 1 year, and this would be to raise funds for the fiscal year ending August 31st, 2026. And Liz Lentz is going to read that motion.
Article 10, I move that the congregation authorize to be raised and appropriated from the income and receipts of the society, including the Sunday collections and funds obtained by general solicitation or otherwise, such amounts as may be necessary or appropriate to meet the expenses, debts, or other charges of the society during the fiscal year ending August 31, 2026, and that the treasurer be and is hereby authorized, subject to the approval of the Standing Committee, to borrow from time to time for a period not to exceed 1 year, such amounts as may be necessary and appropriate to meet the expenses, debts, and other charges of the society during the fiscal year for which provision has not otherwise been made.
Do we have a second? Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? So that Article 10 also passes, is approved. And now we move to Article 11 on the warrant, which is to approve and elect the members of the search team, whose job will be to conduct a search for our next settled minister. And Peter McEntee has that motion.
I move that the election of Myra Rodriguez Howard, Steve Kent, Allison Kirschgasser, Terrell Levering, Martin Newhouse, Sophia Sid, and Dan Spencer to the ministerial search team to identify the society's next settled minister be approved.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Any discussion? Then, there being no discussion, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? So, guys, we're elected. Okay. And now we have Article 12, and I'm going to ask, I believe I have Allison Kirschgasser is going to read, pardon me, yeah, Article 12. Allison, I think you're supposed to do that.
I move that the nominations be closed and that the clerk be instructed to cast one ballot in favor of the slate presented by the Nominating and Leadership Development Committee.
Do I have a second? Second. Okay. Would anybody from that committee wish to make any comments before we have a discussion? Okay, is there any discussion on that article? Yes, Claire. Are you okay, Claire? Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Then all those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That article passes as well. So we have approved the report of the Nominating and Leadership Development Committee, and thank in advance all those who have agreed to serve on committees and as in leadership positions in the church. And now we come to Article 13, which is to hear and act on a congregational resolution of conscience and resistance, which has been proposed by the Social Action and Outreach Committee for adoption by this body. May I have a motion? I believe, Fritzi, I've asked you to give the motion.
I move that a congregational resolution of conscience and resistance proposed by Social Action and Outreach Committee be adopted by the Society.
Do I have a second? Okay, I'm going to ask, John Healy has agreed to come up and say a few words about the genesis of this statement and its purpose. I want to make just an introductory comment. We are not able at this meeting, nor is it appropriate at this meeting, to wordsmith the statement. The statement is as it is. If we tried to wordsmith the statement, it would go forever. And meanwhile, we've had several meetings where people who were interested could come forward and make decisions. So we're going to vote on the statement as it is presented. But in any event, I just want to make that clear because we just don't have the capacity to do that at our annual meeting. So John, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, thank you, Martin. So I hope I write a little better than I speak extemporaneously. Yeah, I am the person who kind of nudged the Social Action Committee to adopt this resolution shortly after the inauguration, as transgression after transgression started to pile up. I guess I'd like to explain how it came about and what it's for. Well, you can see in the resolution itself all the bullet points of all of the assault on our norms, institutions, and values. Just ignoring the rulings of the courts, dismantling agencies that are generating such soft power and goodwill for this country, for the American people around the world, just dismantling them, throwing them away. The arrest and deportation of legal residents and actually citizens, children with cancer, completely outside, no due process, just deporting them to this gulag in Central America. The assault on the methodical assault and intimidation of institutions, which is an assault on one of our most fundamental values of freedom of speech. The assault on scapegoating and the scapegoating of our most vulnerable communities. There are other administrations in the past that have done some of these, taken some of these actions. None with the kind of scope and the all-out assault on our constitutional order and the rule of law. When we were in school learning about civics and government, often the teaching was that the government has three basic branches. It's a three-legged stool: the Congress, the courts, and the executive. That's really not quite accurate. There's at least one other leg to that stool, and maybe more. The fourth part of the structure that's keeping our way of life together is us. It's a free press. It's civil institutions, and it's your voice. It's our voice. And this is not just me, not just the Social Action Committee, but there are scholars and historians that are saying this is the most dangerous time in this country's history, in the life of the Republic since the Civil War. The executive has every intention to end the constitutional order. This is our World War II moment. If you think that what I'm saying is far-fetched and over the top and Chicken Little, ask the people in Hungary who've lost their democracy. Ask the people in Poland who are fighting to reclaim it. It can happen here. So what's going to happen? What's the purpose of having the congregation make the statement? Yeah, part of it is that we need to raise our voices. We need to say, this is unacceptable. This is not going to stand. And it's another motivation is, I've heard so many people say, it's with the assault that all of the things that are coming so fast, so furiously, every day there's some new outrage. It's designed to make us feel helpless and hopeless, and that there's nothing we can do. Well, there are things like this. This congregation has prestige in the community. Your voice means a lot to the community. So I would urge you, I urge you to approve the resolution. Just two other items. This resolution, the adoption of this resolution, I have it on good legal authority, will not affect the tax-exempt status of the church. And I will, in a moment or two, ask for I don't want anyone to feel pressured. I mean, if it passes, great. If it doesn't pass, I mean, I'm still here because, I believe in democracy and accepting the will of the people, accepting a fair election and vote. So I'll be asking for a secret ballot, a paper ballot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. And in fact, John has requested that we vote this on a ballot. We have ballot forms, and that's how we will proceed. I hope that everybody's happy with that. Any other comments or discussion? Yes, Reverend Seth.
I just want to say a couple things, or maybe just one thing about this, which is, personally, I think this is a great statement, and I'm happy to stand beside this, and if I was voting, I would vote for it. But I just want to name that I know from having been at the standing committee meetings and other meetings where we've talked about this, that not everybody here agrees with every single word of how this is written. And I just want to lift up that that's okay. That the idea of this is not that it's perfect or that it's exactly how you would have written it, but it's important to say something right now. And my question, I hope we're considering, is this statement good enough to represent us right now? And I would say for me it is, and more than that for me. But hopefully that's the question that we can ask ourselves right now. Not would I agree with, if I was writing this, would I write it this way, or if I agree with every single word? But is this enough to represent us in making this important statement right now? So that's, I just want to ask you, not trying in any way to stifle conversation, but I just want to ask you if you can consider it in that framework. Is this good enough for the things that for us needs to be said as a congregation right now?
Sue Brokaw.
Sue Brokaw here. I'm just wondering whether we know of other faith communities that are doing similar things. I personally endorse this, although I'd submit it otherwise. But anyway, I endorse the concept.
I believe that other faith communities are making stands like this. We have Gordy over here.
Sorry if I missed this. Are we just voting on the bolded part of this, or is it everything that's written here?
The entire statement.
Okay.
Excuse me? Maybe I misunderstood your question. No, everything in the statement is being voted on, yeah. Right, the whole thing, yes, the whole thing, yes. No, the whole thing. Any other comments?
Claire McNeil, I support this resolution, and I thank very much the process that the Social Action Committee did engender after not being able to present it to the Standing Committee, and the Standing Committee asking that it go to the general membership. then there were several listening sessions in which the words were fine-tuned and strengthened. Sometimes by leaving out something, you can strengthen a statement, because if you don't have specific examples that people are going to argue about, but you're looking at the general principle. So one of the principles, the rule of law, I looked up in the beginning of this discussion, and it means a lot more than just, well, we have laws and everybody should obey them. It is a concept that was developed that the leader of a nation must live under the rule of law, and there's no exceptions. They are not special in that way. And I think that particularly pertains to this situation. We know that they are taking vulnerable communities and using the disagreement. We can have disagreements in our country about how to handle certain situations, but using those disagreements to make it seem as though people are bad and dangerous and we must get rid of them. They're both using that against the people, the trans people, the immigrants, as well as they're working against them as they're using that as leverage for their power.
Just to be clear on what we're voting, it begins, therefore we, the members on page 7, and I'm asking a question, so. Okay, final, all the way down to the end, okay.
What happens after the vote? What, if we pass this, then what?
Well, if we pass this, then the church has adopted this statement, and the statement can be made public. It becomes a position of the Winchester Unitarian Society.
I think actually, operationally, what will happen is, with all the help that I can recruit, I'm going to shop it around to other UU congregations, to really other faith communities in the area, to the press, as much media, other resistance organizations, and encourage people to adopt it in whatever they want, to change it whichever way they want in order to make a public statement themselves.
I realize how broad this is, but I want to bring it down to, oh, I'm sorry. A lot of good that does. I realize how broad this is, but I want to bring it down to this church, to our church. It's the main thing. This inherent worth and dignity of every person is what brings a lot of us here. It brought me here in 1998. I was one of the 2 first same-sex people to walk down this aisle and be married in this church. And it was big. It's still big. So anything that might possibly chip away at the inherent worth and dignity of another person, this congregation should stand against. And I appreciate what you've done and what the Social Justice Action Committee has done, and I stand by this statement.
Hi, Marilyn Lane. John, this question for you. In addition to recruiting others, like-minded congregations or whatever, to adopt something like this, by this church adopting it, wouldn't it also allow this church to advocate for change, for protesting, for action?
There are a lot of things that we're doing, a lot of actions and committee actions that have been taken that are already doing that. Yeah, I'm not quite sure I understand the question. I mean, I would be sharing it with other organizations and encouraging them to adopt it and submit it to their networks and their membership for approval as well. If that answers your question.
Any other comments or questions?
I'm sorry if I'm dumb, because this question's maybe already been answered. There was a much longer statement that was circulated by email, but what we're voting on is just this shortish paragraph.
No, that's not right. That's not correct. That's not correct.
Well, am I missing a page?
It's page 5, 6, and 7.
Oh, okay. Thank you, never mind.
Yep.
I'm done. Okay.
It's the same statement that was distributed when the warrant was sent out. Any other comments?
Just for avoidance of doubt, the title is A Congregational Resolution of Conscience and Resistance, Final Version. The first few words are, as Unitarian Universalists, we have worked through the years. The last part of it is, we urge all our like-minded congregants, neighbors, and fellow Americans to speak and act for these values. If not now, when? Everything between those parts is what we are voting on.
Correct.
I have one question that I wanted to bring up. I thoroughly support the statement. A fellow congregant member brought this up to me, which I think makes a lot of sense. By putting this forth, we are adding to the target on our backs for this. I think that's a good decision. We are stronger than some other groups, and attracting attention here takes it away from folks who are more vulnerable. But we should make plans for how to respond to being targeted. I would encourage the Social Action Committee to think about that at future meetings and bring to the congregation more plans for how to respond to attacks related to our endorsing this.
Thank you.
I just wanted to give a slight counterpoint. This statement is so far away from how I would word a statement myself that I am not voting for this. However, I do believe that it is important to do something rather than doing nothing, so I am planning on abstaining from this vote because of that reason. So I do think I would take away half of the words. I think there's a lot of words in there that are divisive, and I don't agree with necessarily, or at least I would say them in a different way, but I believe strongly with the intent, and therefore I am in favor of us doing something, but I can't myself personally vote for it. Just wanted to say that.
Okay. Sophia has a comment?
I'm Sophia. Marilyn had asked a question about kind of what would happen with this statement. And actually in the meeting, there was a conversation about that. And so I wanted John to speak to it.
I think what Sophia's getting at is she suggested that we submit it to Worcester Match.
Oh no, the patch. You said you were going to put it in a patch, and that there would be action items to.
I'm not sure what the patch is.
So in the one of the listening sessions, there was a conversation about putting it in like a local paper, and that there was an additional like kind of action items that we could do in the if not now, when, and then there were some bullets, and I think that the social action does plan to do that. So at least in the local papers, and also I'm guessing on the website, if we have it, there will be other action items.
Yeah, I think maybe what Sophia's getting at is I was going to put a QR code at the very end for things that you can, groups with whom you could work to preserve the institutions and values that we have. But there will be a file on the Social Action Committee drop-down about groups that you can engage with, partisan and nonpartisan alike, to help preserve the Constitution.
We have a comment in the back.
One right here first.
Okay.
I saw Larry first.
Hi, Larry Banks. I may be one of the few people here that was in college during Vietnam, given my age. And I remember as a student, I was a freshman when Kennedy was assassinated. I was ironing my shirts, actually. I remember that day very much. Not that they're totally connected, but I remember thinking as a student that we were facing a lot of stuff back then. And we got through it. There was a lot of riots and stuff, as some of us remember. I was also, I remember where I was the night the Watergate papers were published by the Beacon Press, which is our Unitarian publishing house. They were brave enough to do it. And we know what happened to Tricky Dick. I still have my Nixon piggy bank. Literally, a pig looks like Nixon. There's a piggy bank. I still have it. It's in my Zoom in the back. Every now and then, someone who's my age asks me what it is because they remember. I look at this time as far worse, in my experience, than Vietnam or Watergate. And I look at this potential problem we have with, I'll say his name, Trump and Musk and all those other people, as just being totally out of control and not having any ethics or morality to what's going on. So I understand the wording could be different, that's fine, but the fundamental fact is, and I completely have to agree, that the inherent worth and dignity of every one of us, no matter where we're from, no matter what our citizenship is, no matter what our age is so important that we have to, as a congregation, say yes to this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Zareen Karani Araos. I wholeheartedly agree with what is prompting this, and my outrage may be even greater than what you've expressed. But I would urge us as a congregation to reflect. If we want to get to point X, and if what we are doing is going to take us to point Y, does that make sense? Which means the way we are articulating this, if it's publicized, is it going to promote our cause, or is it going to be even more divisive to bring about a backlash which may just hurt the cause that all of us, I know, care about? It's a very crucial juncture for the country, for everyone, and that's why I think we should be thoughtful in how do we change and transform hearts and inspire them to bring about the change, not bring about a backlash or anger some people or make it personal. I would think twice even about mentioning any individual there, but to raise people's conscience by what we write. Is our writing, if it's going to be publicized everywhere, inspiring enough to bring patriotic people on both sides together to say we won't let this happen? I think we need to think carefully instead of just saying we have to do something. That may hurt us, and it would be nice also to hear. I mean, I applaud you for your feeling and effort, and I'm with you. But we'd like to hear, how do we cope with the different backlash? And are all the words we've written loving and helpful? Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Just briefly, I note that in making this statement, we will not be alone. Many others are saying similar things in different venues. So we are joining with many voices. It's not just us, it's others.
Vicky Coccaluto. I'm in favor of a statement that asserts our values, and therefore I plan to vote in favor. Something triggered a cautionary note with me a little earlier when we spoke about advocacy. Advocacy for or against candidates or political organizations could be tricky waters. And as I see it, this purpose is mainly to state what we are for, what our values are, and then perhaps it will function to link us up to other organizations of similar-minded people who will be in the advocacy position. That's my thought.
I'm Denise Pappas. I read a book called Money, Lies, and God. Denise Pappas. I read a book recently called Money, Lies, and God. I saw the speaker at the Arizona Book Festival. It's a major tie-in of the idea that the religious right, which all of you know about naturally, have used the churches with their donors giving money, and every week sermons to go to 1,500 pastors to say something the opposite of what we're discussing today. And I realized the difference is when you have a community of Unitarians, we don't have to go to church. These people have to go to church and they have to listen to this stuff. I think it's time we should try to beat them at their own game.
Thank you.
I notice when I drive around the area, the Concord Church has a big sign that says, "We believe in democracy." I notice our Arlington Church at that corner says, "Join us." I can't remember, it was something about support democracy. And I notice at the end of this, the words that I really care about and think are important. We reaffirm our determination to preserve the Constitution of the United States, our belief that people everywhere have more in common than what separates them, and our demand for the restoration of the norms and institutions that have been a model and beacon of democracy for the world. I support this resolution.
Thank you.
So like the Black Lives Matter flag that's out front and the welcoming banner here, that says something about us. And I think this resolution will do the same thing.
Good afternoon. I'm Mary McIntosh. There are 3 words here that scream loudly. Silence is complicity.
Any other comments?
I'm Marcy Thompson, and I want to say that I agree with the concerns at some level, but I think that, I was reading an essay the other day in something called Myths of America, and one of the myths is the myth of backlash, and I think what we're seeing now is frontlash, and we don't have to wait for backlash. We're getting it already. I think if we're concerned about safety as our congregation in this building, I think we need to address that. And I think we are addressing that as a congregation in terms of how can we stay safe within this building. As a parent of a trans daughter, I can tell you that I don't feel safe any day of any week. I hope that we as a community can stand up and say enough is enough. And I think that it's true that on the right, they're not standing down, and this is not backlash. This is frontlash. This is whiplash. And I'm going to vote for it. I have my own concerns about some of the wording and whatever, but I'll just say that.
I'm so impressed at the conscience and intellect that I see in this room. I was part of just adding a few comments and suggestions during the process that John Healy began, and so many other people contributed to in detail. I'm also struck by the comments that Zareen made about the importance of forming a wider coalition to address some of the most important constitutional violations. And also, I think, if I heard correctly what Vicky said about being wary of our electoral advocacy, which is not allowed under a 501c3 nonprofit. But still, 501c3 nonprofits are still able to discuss politics and public affairs. It's electoral advocacy in elections and politicians specifically. It's not all political issues that we're banned from discussing. If I understand that correctly, there are probably those in this room who know more about that than I do.
You are correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Martin. So I just wanted to identify one thing that I think is important to remember, which is this does not have to be the end of our discussion, our education, or our advocacy on political understanding in general, and liberation struggles too. So I think I support the resolution, even though there are things that I wish were included in it that are not. On the one hand, I believe it's extremely important to join with as right-wing and as Republican organizations as we can find who agree with the threat to the constitutional order, just to end that problem. It doesn't have to end there, but these are coalitions, and many, I think, people in European governments with parliaments have a better understanding of coalitions than we do with our only two-party system. But our education, our advocacy, our interest, our expressions can continue beyond just this one resolution, which is important in itself. I'm also struck by my understanding of the larger national UU Association and other UU churches and efforts. There are many of them, and I think it's no secret to other faiths and other religious organizations and nonprofits that it's no secret the values UUs hold and the many organizations that exist that come out of the UU tradition and the UU ethics. So I think by making this statement, we're not revealing any big secrets that are going to suddenly oppose potential coalition members to us. But at the same time, I think we can both work to build broader coalitions with people we might disagree with on 90% of things, but agree with on the constitutional order. And at the same time, we can build coalitions with people with whom we share what's probably like a 5 or 10 or 20% minority view within the United States on individual issues. Both those things are important, I think. So for myself, I'm going to vote for this resolution, even though I wish certain other things were included.
Thank you.
I had no intentions of speaking about this today, but I remember discussions about this in 1955 in Montgomery, Alabama. I was there. It's time to do something. Number two, I was not there when Benjamin Franklin said, it's a republic if you want to work hard to keep it.
First, I want to disagree with John. He is a fine speaker. That was really rousing. And I agree with so many of the sentiments that have been expressed here today. In particular, Zorine. I do get carried by this crowd. I am a person who carries my passport around with me wherever I go, just in case I'm stopped. I was stopped at an airport. I told this story to Martin, boarding a plane, wanting to see my driver's license, and just spending some time looking back and forth between my license and my actual face. And is this this woman for real? Anyway, they did let me board onto the plane, but I carry my passport around, and I know there's something wrong. But Zorine speaks to a piece of me that has been just not coalescing until I heard her words, which is that I feel like we need to put some thought in, and maybe it's after passing this resolution, but I think we need to put some thought into what can we do to change minds? What can we do to actually move this country in a direction that we would like to see it move? That's it.
Thank you.
If I may, very briefly, could we pass this as an internal document of what we all support, but rethink the statement we might want to publish and put out there that represents what we think? I don't know if it's possible to talk about that here.
That is not before the, that's not on the warrant, so we can't deal with that. But to be fair, if you want to make a motion to amend, you can do that. I probably shouldn't say it.
Can we call the question?
Let's just, before we do that issue, anybody else want to make a statement or a comment? We have one more comment. Is that okay, Pete? Because if we call the question, we need to. Okay, two? All right.
I'm not really sure what to say about where I stand with exactly what's written here, but I will say just a couple things. I am rolling on to the Social Action and Outreach Committee next year. I was not, like, that. This whole process was not part of my decision making. So I feel like I would really invite everyone to communicate with the Social Action and Outreach Committee, to be involved, to sort of use this as a beginning to sort of connect and sort of be together in terms of what does feel comfortable for us to do. I was in the office talking to Richard, and he mentioned a real desire to put a banner out. I've heard that a little bit here. Steve passed by a UU church yesterday that said, "This is a sanctuary for sanity." So, you know, there are things that we can do from here, and I really hope people stay involved and in conversation. So I just want to put that out there, that regardless of whether this particular resolution gets passed or not, hopefully just having this conversation helps us realize that we're all feeling like we want to do something. Thanks.
Phil Coonley, I happen to also be going the social action and outreach. And I do think that one of the points where several people have really said, we'll have a statement which we're going to probably agree to, and that isn't perfect, but the perfect is the enemy of the good. But there'll be the real challenge will be how we handle questions. And those questions will probably be brief statements, and they have to be really thoughtful, as Irene's reminding us. And I've just seen this locally with the Jumelage. I don't know how many of you are in Jumelage, but they basically have decided a few days ago that they weren't going to have the French entourage come to a Colorado trip this year because of such uncertainty over how foreigners with visas and all are being treated. But the communication about this decision was one that used words that were insightful rather than bridge building. And that's created a big storm. So even if you thought, well, that's a reasonable decision, the way it was articulated just riled people up rather than made everyone say, yeah, we have to be considerate of particularly considerate of visitors right now. But anyway, I can all assure you that social action will really think about this, will seek input, and will try to build bridges. And mainly, from my point of view, the enablers are the congressmen, the senators, congressmen, who basically aren't doing the constitutional duty they're supposed to be doing.
Pete Baldwin? Are you moving to call the question? Are you moving to call the question? Yes? That takes precedence. Is there a second? Second. Okay. No, you can't. No, I'm sorry. No. The rules are, but just wait a second. Okay. So we have before us call the question. It's been seconded. All those in favor say, raise your hands. Okay. We have to count because we have to have 2/3 vote. Can somebody count? 1, 2, 3, 3 over here. How many here? We have 3. I have 3 here. This is a vote to call the question. We need a 2/3 majority to call the question. That is to come to we stop all discussion and we vote. Okay, do we have a number? This is to end debate. We'll get to that. We have 34 where? In the whole room? 34 yeses. Yes, just members, yeah. 34? 24 in total? So these two are 24. And who voted here to do it? So 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. Looks like 35, looks like 36. Is that right? So 24, then now we have 36. And who's opposed? Yes. 11? So 17. That means we have 53 people here. And, excuse me? No abstentions are not counted, no. Okay, it's only 2/3 of the votes cast, okay? But not abstentions. So let's see, so we have 53, and what's 2/3 of 53? So 36, so it passes? Okay, so that means no more discussion. We have to go to a vote. All right? Excuse me? Yes, you can.
What does that mean? What does it mean that we can move to amend? I don't know Robert's rules.
Well, I think we're beyond that point, but you can move to amend the motion. Okay? So if you move to amend the motion, then that takes precedence, that's seconded, and then that's voted on before we get back to the motion. If the motion to amend the motion passes, the motion is amended, and then that's what's voted on. Okay? Does that make sense? I think we're past that point right now. Okay? All right, let me just, hold on 1 second. Just want to check one thing. Okay, yeah, so 2/3 vote, you exclude blanks and abstentions. So this is passed. So we want to do a vote by paper ballot. Obviously, this matter is controversial, and we want people to feel that they can vote without having to disclose necessarily how they vote. I'm not saying anybody cares about that, but somebody might. So now, under Robert's rules, I have to appoint so-called tellers. And one of them will be Gordy McIntosh, because he's standing here ready to be, because Gordy's always ready to help. And Sophia Sid, you're going to be the other. So what I want you guys to do is give paper ballots to everyone. Each person gets a ballot. And then write on the ballot yes or no, and fold the ballot so that your answer is not disclosed. Okay? And then we will collect the ballots in this handy device. And then we will count the ballots. Excuse me? No, but a yes vote means that the society is adopting this statement. A no vote means the society is not adopting this statement. Yes, Fritzy. Yes, abstentions are part of the vote in this instance because it's simply a majority vote. No, we'll come get them. And great thing about paper ballots, the moderator gets the vote. If you want to abstain, write abstain or ABST or even ABS. AB we might have trouble with. So now we have to wait for the vote to be counted. So we'd like the tellers to count the vote. Well,
Yeah, I could smell that.
do you want a piece of paper? So,
59,
yes.
8 abstain,
and
8
eight,
no.
yes. Okay, we have a vote total. On the motion to adopt the congregational resolution, we have 59 yes votes, 8 abstentions, and 8 no votes, so it is adopted. Thank you all. We are now coming to the last part of the last article of the warrant and our adjournment. I just hope before we do this that we can all show our appreciation for all those who have been leaders and volunteers and workers, both staff and among the members during the past church year by just applauding. Thank you again for a very civil and very, very impressive meeting. So there being no other business that may legally come before this meeting, and I know this is a tough one, would anybody want to move to adjourn? Is there a second? All in favor? Okay, we adjourn.